Robert and Stephanie McDonald remember the day well. It was Super Bowl Sunday 2012, and they had gone to a friend's home for lunch. As Stephanie was rounding up the kids to eat, she noticed their 2-year-old son, Jace, was missing.
She says, "We can't find Jace." At that point, my friend and I exited the back door and saw that the pool gate was open. So we sprinted to the pool, and my friend was in front of me, and he reached down and grabbed Jace from the pool. And as I saw him come up with Jace in his hand, I just began to cry out, "Jesus, my Jesus."
As soon as I knew that Jace was in the pool, I was just in such shock. I was frozen with fear, and I couldn't even move.
Stephanie called 911 while Robert and his friend Eric performed CPR.
At that point, we had laid him on the pool deck, and he was cold and blue, and his pupils were enormous. There was no color in his eyes. My first thing was that my son is dead. He's gone, he's lifeless. And the one thing that was in my mind is that, Jesus, your promises are true. So we continued to do CPR, and we would trade off, my friend and I.
EMTs arrived within minutes. Robert stayed with Jace and continued to pray.
I remember holding his toes and kneeling at his feet, and they were ice cold, like popsicles.
Captain Joey Ruiz was one of the first EMTs to get there.
As soon as we saw a blue kid, we knew that he wasn't getting oxygen, so we needed to do whatever we can to get him that oxygen that he was trying to get when he was gasping for that air.
They were not able to get a regular heart rhythm on this young child, and so they were beating his heart for him through CPR.
Jace had to be intubated. Meanwhile, a life flight had been dispatched to a landing area nearby.
We loaded him into the ambulance, and at this point, which felt like forever, we knew that the helicopter was about 5 minutes on top of us.
Our hands are just out and praying that, we still have our son alive.
After the chopper took off, Robert and Stephanie rushed to the hospital.
I was asking God confidently, Lord, I know that you can do anything. I know that you can. I know that you can bring my son to life, and I pray that you do. But if not, I know that you're going to comfort us and everything's going to be okay.
They called friends and family to pray. At the hospital, the news was grave. Robert wrote down exactly what the doctors said in his journal.
At shift change, Dr. Mike had come in and was very negative. He said Jace had pneumonia, antibiotics won't work, lungs were shot, and it was all over. At this point, I remember there were a lot of people there coming to visit and support us, and our pastor had told them, hey, it's time for you guys to, head out.
By now, little Jace was in a medically induced coma. He was also on a ventilator. The question was, for how long? The plan was to leave the vent on until he showed improvement, assuming he lived. But Stephanie had a strong feeling it should be taken off right away so his lungs could recover on their own. So that night, she and Robert prayed about what to do. The next morning, there was no doubt.
I woke up and I was just so full of peace, I can't even explain it. I was singing worship songs and praising God, and Robert walked in and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, today a miracle is gonna happen. Something good is gonna happen. I just know it. Jace is gonna be okay. And we went to the hospital, and I walked right in and I told them, we need to drop Jace's medication.
Robert and Stephanie understood the risks, but were convinced it was the right course of action.
So as I'm standing there with my arms raised high, I just put all my faith and trust in God. And they pulled that tube from his mouth. He sat up and was breathing on his own. And I remember Caleb playing, and the Newsboys song, "God's Not Dead" came on.
And it goes, "Let love explode and bring the dead to life. And that's exactly when they pulled that tube out, right at that moment. And I knew that was God, giving me a little wink saying, it's okay, he's gonna be fine.
I just remember Stephanie saying, "Can I hold my son?"
And the respiratory nurse said, yeah, you can hold him, do whatever you want. So I grabbed him and I held him. And I just remember thinking that I didn't think I was ever gonna get to hold him again. And that was such a precious moment for me to get to hold him in my arms again.
In just 1 week, Jace went home, and he needed no therapy at all. Now 4, he loves playing with his 3 older sisters and little brother.
I just appreciate the gift and the blessing that he is every day. Every day is just such a gift with my kids, with all of them.
Miracles can only be explained by one person, and that's who created us. And there's no explanation for seeing my son dead on a pool deck, but today I see him running around full of life, strong.
Do I think it was a miracle? Absolutely, it was a miracle.
Statistics may say this, and the doctors and science may say that, but none of that matters to God. God can do anything. He's the great physician. He's the one in control.